I'm Lloyd Thrall, and I am the Associate Director of the Technology, Cybersecurity, and Policy Program here at CU Boulder. I'm also a former Army Special Operator and formerly a Senior Defense appointee in the previous administration, where I reported regularly to the Secretary and Congress on matters of military strategy, force deployment, and the readiness of our armed services to meet the missions assigned by the National Security Strategy and the President of the United States. From that background, I've seen the value behind and beyond that, the pressing need for what we are here to do tonight. Now, tonight is a celebration of some great students and what I believe some phenomenal work. But I would argue it is more than that. And I'd like to briefly share with you why I feel that way. There's much to celebrate tonight, and we will celebrate. But we are here because not all is right in the world of national security. Consider this. As recently as the late 1980s, almost half of global research and development, half for the globe, was funded by the US government, and the majority of that by the Department of Defense. Today, that number is less than 5%. The explosion of commercial R&D, much of it overseas, has displaced the people responsible for our security from the technological heartbeat of our globe. That is not just an interesting fact to us, to many of us, that is a disturbing and dangerous trend. That occurs in a context in which, I would argue, and many as well, the military and civilian worlds are increasingly converging. No longer could you draw somewhat of a cleft between the world of washing machines and the world of submarines. Now, terrorism, insurgency, cybersecurity, AI, machine learning, space technology, advanced comms, social media, lawfare, these worlds blend together, and that technology and those dynamics increase at an increasing rate. So I wonder, as a senior policymaker in this space, are we ready for that world? And I have to tell you, I'm not confident that we are. So in my grandparents' generation, and then their parents' generation for World War I, there were similar feelings. We want peace. We believe it is likely. We believe if a war came, it would be short. This peace that we enjoy is a historical anomaly. And I worry that we are not ready for that world, both from the context of technology and social dynamics and the historical anomaly in which we live. That is why, ultimately, we are here. We have wonderful students. They have done wonderful work. But what sets Designing for Defense apart, we are not just here to celebrate that work. We are not just here to see pitches in pursuit of better lifestyles, better products, and higher profit, though valuable those activities are. We are here to help bridge the gap between this world of what I would argue is decreasing security and deterrence and the great minds and perspectives that come out of the whole and the breadth of American society and the American experience. So, that is why we gather here with 56 of CU Boulder's finest students, selected through competitive selection, an average GPA of over 3.6, undergraduates to PhD students, engineers, business students, shoulder to shoulder. We have 11 Eagle Scouts. We have folks with real-world startup success and experience, just as we have special operations vets and combat veterans in these student teams. They join shoulder to shoulder against some of the toughest challenges that we face. Tonight you'll hear pitches about securing the Internet of Things and the explosion of those devices on our networks. You'll hear about first-order questions about what is the Department of Defense's policy with the explosion of commercial space activity? What is our role in that world? You'll see our support at a tactical to strategic levels for special operators, and you'll hear about how we might conduct supply chains under conditions of high-end combat, work we're doing for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So, it is my hope that at the end of this evening, you'll be convinced of something that I am convinced of. Stanford, Georgia Tech, MIT, UT Austin, USC, we are the finest Designing for Defense program in the United States. It doesn't matter that I feel that way. What matters is the 8 sponsors that come to us with their problems feel that way at the end of the evening. But I'd like to suggest the way to measure that is really only twofold. We care about 2 things. We care about taking 56 bright young students and making 56 leaders for our country. And we care about the value that we bring to real-world national security professionals who are out on the line. All other considerations, however attractive, are details. I think we've hit that target. I hope you feel that way after you see the presentations. I will say this, as you see these students, and I hope you get a chance to meet with them in the moments to come, today's student is tomorrow's CEO, tomorrow's congressman, tomorrow's community leader, tomorrow's chief engineer. That's who we've brought together at CU Boulder to address these challenges. So we didn't just leave them. We sent them to places like the Pentagon, meeting and briefing with general officers. We sent them to Fort Bragg. We sent them to firsthand work with national security operators, getting them, for most of them, the closest they will be in their life to their national security community. So this is D4D, and here at CU we are deadly serious about it. We appreciate greatly that you would come and join us and see this student work and celebrate these future leaders as they work for the common good. Now, it would be remiss, obviously, an experience like D4D doesn't happen by itself. There are many stakeholders. I will not be able to name them all, but there are a few that I would like to acknowledge. Of particular note, I want to highlight our gratitude and excitement for the partnership with the National Security Innovation Network, or INSIN. INSIN, formerly MD5, has that mission to close the gap between the generative, creative, high-tech economy, a source of national strength and a source of new perspectives, and the challenges that our warfighters face in the air, on the ground, on the sea, and under the sea on our behalf every day. Now, whether in INSIN's case that's helping the Boston Police Department learn from the Marathon bombing, whether that's helping special operators and medical professionals with the highest end of technology, helping the city of New York with mass evacuation and how they would deal with mass casualty events, or right here in Colorado helping us protect critical infrastructure, as they did in their cybersecurity hackathon last year. That is the work that INSIN does on our collective behalf. If you find value in tonight's presentation, that is emblematic of the kind of cutting-edge work and the kind of partnership that they create for schools like CU Boulder. So in addition to INSIN, our teams have been supported by a host of military sponsors, veterans, business community leaders, academics here at the university, and technology specialists. I cannot name them all, but to our 8 sponsors listed in your program, we are sincerely grateful that you would come to us and allow us to work on your problems. Vice Chancellor Terry Fees, Dean Braun, Dean Matusik have been steadfast supporters of INSIN and the D4D project here at CU Boulder, and is that wind at our back that has made us such a strong program. I am grateful that our judges, with their lucrative time, would come and for free come here and judge our student work. For some, Dr. Schatz, Mr. Froelich, General Drew, General Cortez, that meant coming across the country on their free time here to support us in this work. We are grateful for that. I'd also like to give particular thanks to our mentors, and I'm wondering if they wouldn't mind standing up and getting a round of applause. These are local business leaders and military veterans who donate their time weekly to be in the trenches and work for our students and work for our collective good. Wonderful. Here's our agenda. After I, at length, finally conclude, you'll have some brief recorded remarks from Congressman Crow from the Colorado 6th. We'll then have keynote remarks from General Chris Cortez, Vice President at Microsoft for Military Affairs. You'll then hear 8 6-minute pitches from our CU teams, meeting a diverse array of challenges. These are divided into traditional technology pitches with which many of you are probably familiar, with the exception that their market, at least in part, is for the national security community. You'll also hear from 4 teams that are developing novel changes to policy or business practices to address the changing world that we spoke about. At the conclusion of that, we will tabulate scores from the judges to announce winners, and we will ask you, through your cell phone, to pick a People's Choice winner. This will be the highest scoring team who was not awarded by the judges. You will hear after that remarks from the Regional Director of INSIN, Rachel Cheatham. We will announce our winners, and then there will not be time for Q&A during the normal presentation, given the number of teams that we have. But judges, mentors, and sponsors and stakeholders can move to individual breakout rooms with the teams that they're interested in to engage with that team and that work more closely. So, welcome to Designing for Defense. We are honored that you would come and make time to join us. We hope that you will join us in celebrating the work of these brilliant students as they put their labor and their brilliance to our common good. And with that, Congressman Crow.
Hi, I'm Colorado Congressman Jason Crow. Congratulations to the students on achieving this capstone in your Designing for Defense course, and thank you for your hard work. CU is one of the finest national security programs in the nation, and it's the initiatives like this that make it truly incredible. These problems aren't just theoretical, these are real service members out there with real problems and with their lives on the line. The approach that you've been taking in Designing for Defense is the same one that I take in my job. Understanding how issues affect our service members on the ground, and then finding real solutions for them. As a former Army Ranger and now in Congress, I've seen firsthand the need for fresh thinking in national security, and I feel better knowing you are on the case. Engaging some of CU's best students with the military through D4D is an important civil military endeavor. This is helpful to your education as students and future leaders, as well as to our service members. Congratulations again, and keep up your hard work.
Ladies and gentlemen, Major General Chris Cortez.
Thank you, Lloyd, for that introduction. Distinguished guests and all the participants here and guests today, welcome. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I too want to congratulate the 56 students that are competing. It's an awesome competition. You're absolutely brilliant, and I congratulate you on that. What I'd like to do today is just share with you a little bit about what Microsoft does, and hopefully build a bridge here between what Microsoft's doing and the vision that these 56 students have, because oftentimes in life it's about vision, it's about courage, and it's about going after that idea that you have when you're really not sure what's going to happen on the other end. But if you don't start that journey, and if you don't put 100% of yourself into it, it's never going to happen. I would share with you that Microsoft is very much involved in the military community. The majority of you here in the audience, I have been told, heard from my chief of staff recently where he talked about this program called the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy. But it's something that started shortly after I joined Microsoft in 2006. There were 2 of us, then there were 3 of us, then a handful of us, and it took us until 2013 to actually launch this program. It took courage, it took vision, persistence. But now we have this program across the country in 15 locations with over 1,300 graduates in over 5.5 years, but now we're going to graduate 1,000 every year. And what is it? It's an 18-week program for transitioning military that gives them the blocking and tackling enough to get into the IT industry with an average starting national salary of $75,000. And if you don't think that's not a great start for a military person transitioning into the civilian world, it really is. And not only have we built this program across the country, we do a program called U-Spark for military kids. It's for middle school kids. We did it last year on 5 bases across the country. This is a program that Microsoft has done in major cities across the United States since 2012. But we said, why not take it to military bases, to military kids, and let them get exposed to STEM? It's a 9 to 3, 6-hour exposure to STEM, robotics, coding. They get to talk to people in the IT industry. It fires them up. It's really an amazing program. And the other thing we just did is we graduated our first Military Spouse Technology Academy up in the state of Washington. And we're going to make an announcement next week that we'll probably take it to another location. But so just in those 3 examples alone, I want you to know that Microsoft supports our military. Other examples, and I've been right there with these teams. We have teams that work with the technology that's used by our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. I've been there. And senior leaders today really, really value technology. Technology is another weapon. It's another capability that, if harnessed properly, allows for super performance, maximum efficiency. Technology is so vital. You know, if we can talk about Office 365 and Azure, the cloud, I knew it would. Several years ago, I said it to military leaders. Hey, the military is going to be the last one to adopt the cloud, because if you can't put a guard in front of it, and if you can't lock it up in the house behind you here, it doesn't belong to you. You don't own it, so you don't trust it. But the military got it, and the Air Force was the first one to go to Office 365. And then there's Azure. Azure being used by the Army in predictive maintenance. Also HoloLens that's being used by the Army. AI is being used in defense, is being used in national security, public safety. The technology today that Microsoft is providing is being used by our U.S. military in a very big way. On April 30th, there was an announcement that the VA and Microsoft would partner for the Xbox Adaptive Controller. Microsoft actually worked with people that were wounded, that needed a different kind of controller, and we have it now. And believe me, gaming is something that's very useful for wounded warriors in a positive way. It's therapeutic, and we're very proud of that reality. The idea of transitioning veterans is critical, and all of us have a role to play there. We need to do as much as we can for transitioning veterans and their families. I'm very proud to stand here and tell you today that our CEO, the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, when he talks about diversity and inclusion, he talks about veterans. He talks about that they represent diversity, and that a diverse workforce makes for a better workforce. And the fact that Microsoft has this program now for helping military who want to get into the IT industry to be able to do so. So I can't tell you the quality of the military members that have gone through this program called the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy. As of last week, we have 490 companies that have hired graduates that Microsoft hasn't hired. And we're going to be at 500 in the next few weeks. So I challenge all of us to think about our military, to think about our veterans. And again, I congratulate you 56 superstars, wish you well tonight, and wish you well into the future. God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we begin with our 4 prototype pitches. These seek to develop novel technologies to address contemporary American national security issues. We begin with Team Chariot, which will outline their solution to characterize and secure Internet of Things devices on a network. Ladies and gentlemen, Chariot.
I want you all to imagine the life of a U.S. Marine, one of the most fearsome warriors this world has ever seen, threatened by something as simple as a Fitbit. Just last year, the location and layout of an entire Marine base was publicly revealed because the soldiers' Fitbit watches were posting their locations online without anyone realizing. Now our enemies know exactly where to strike, causing the maximum amount of damage and inflicting high amounts of American casualties. Internet of Things, or IoT devices, are prolific, spanning every sector of our technology-driven economy. From consumer electronics like the Fitbit on the soldier's wrist, you can also find them in the healthcare industry and in industry itself. While these devices enhance our day-to-day lives, they can also provide a critical entry point for malicious actors. from organized criminal groups to full-on nation-state actors who demonstrated they can bring the entire Western power grid to its knees simply by using IoT thermostats. There is clearly a need for change. Introducing Chariot. Chariot is an IoT security solution that can identify what devices are on your network, determine when they've been compromised, and alert you, and finally respond to these incidents and devices. Chariot will grow using machine learning from device identification to a comprehensive cybersecurity platform. Chariot has two clear-cut advantages over its competitors in this field: high accuracy in detecting threats, and a focus on data privacy, which ensures we will never need to ask for any of your personally sensitive information. See, our competitors are inflexible. The techniques they've leaned on in the past simply won't cut it in this modern explosion of IoT devices that we see on the internet today. But Chariot has its eyes looking towards the future. We've developed brand new proprietary machine learning algorithms which allow us to be more accurate than our competitors and more flexible. Not only that, but Chariot is poised to be the only security monitoring solution that provides complete data privacy to users. Existing products need to encrypt data on the user's end, but once they receive that, to analyze that data, they need to decrypt it. That decrypted data can contain some really sensitive information: passwords, financial documents, healthcare documents, audio and video feeds from the office. The fact that our competition is only able to analyze decrypted data is a critical flaw in a market that increasingly values sensitive information and understands the damage that data breaches can cause. That's why Chariot has made data privacy a central cornerstone of our product. Using modern advances in cryptography and data analytics, we can monitor IoT devices from users' encrypted data without ever having to decrypt it. In fact, we couldn't decrypt it even if we wanted to. The bottom line is that Chariot can provide peace of mind and IoT security to companies without ever having to put any of their personal sensitive data at risk. Our beachhead markets are two industries for which data security is absolutely critical: defense and healthcare. Security spending in our beachhead industries is expected to double in only 4 years. The defense and healthcare industries rely tremendously on IoT devices. They are easy to operate remotely and can provide critical insights into patient and weapon systems health. However, these industries are also huge attack points for malicious actors. Medical devices can be used to hold a person's life for ransom, and it's easy to understand why an enemy of the United States would want to be able to hack into its weapon systems. Due to the ever-increasing focus on IoT security, coupled with our technological advantages over existing competition, we estimate that we can capture 20% market share of our beachhead industries by 2024. By leasing our product on a per-network monthly subscription basis, we estimate a projected revenue of $110 million. We have validated the need for a product such as Chariot through over 70 interviews with DoD, intelligence community, healthcare, and other industry professionals. And additionally, in 3 short months, we've developed an interface, personally collected and analyzed over 73 data sets from devices, and created brand new algorithms which will allow Chariot to scale beyond what we currently have. However, our proudest achievement yet is that with just a few weeks of development, Chariot can identify threats to IoT devices with over 90% accuracy. Moreover, we can identify what specific type of IoT devices are on your network with over 98% accuracy. These numbers will only continue to grow once we have more devices and more information for our machine learning algorithm. Following our continued development of Chariot and adding more features, we plan on offering a pilot program to a small amount of organizations within our beachhead markets. Once we've further added more features, refined, et cetera, we plan on having a full-scale product launch across the DoD and healthcare industry, leading us to our ultimate goal of expanding our market base beyond our beachhead markets. Moving forward, we would love for you to be a part of Team Chariot. $2 million will allow us to purchase more devices and grow our device identification, hire business and legal experts, expand our cloud infrastructure, and market Chariot to those who truly need it. Team Chariot is made up of 8 dedicated undergraduate and graduate students with real-world experience in computer science, mathematics, machine learning, networking, and business. We designed Chariot to be a comprehensive network cybersecurity solution. Giving organizations peace of mind in their cybersecurity will allow them to get back to their mission of protecting lives. Thank you.
Next, on behalf of Air Force Special Operations Command, Team Value will outline a novel approach to tracking and reducing psychological stress for America's special operators. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Value.
Fortunately for many of us, we will never understand or experience what it is like to be an Air Force Special Operations fighter. And at the same time, these men on the screen will be the first to tell you how unbelievably demanding and life-threatening their job is. And the road from candidacy to actually being in the field isn't stress-free either. In fact, Air Force soft training is so stressful mentally and physically that the most recent attrition rates from this pipeline reflect that about 150 candidates start training, and 3 days later, only 90 remain. Over the next 4 weeks, of those who pass the pipeline or pass this training, only 28 are selected to continue the program. Now, I'm no mathematician, but these numbers are not reassuring. And those of us not familiar with the military might think, well, good, plenty of those candidates shouldn't be there anyways, let's weed out the weak. But our sponsor who runs this program sees it differently, and he believes that many candidates who have the trainability to become the special warfare fighter this country needs are lost too early in this process. And currently, this wing of the Air Force is doing a great job measuring physiological markers of stress, even monitoring activity levels and nutrition intake for the candidates. And on the mental side, they have a psychologist on staff that the candidates can contact as a last resort outlet. But there still seems to be some missing piece of this puzzle of resources necessary for maximizing performance. And over the past 4 months, our team, with the help of our mentors, has interviewed dozens of soft personnel and veterans, as well as industry leaders in mental and physical performance, and even stress research experts, for the purpose of solving this problem. And all of our interviews point to the same solution that the Air Force needs. And that missing puzzle piece is obtaining actionable feedback from the candidates on their perception of performance and mental state. And when put in place, this completes a holistic approach to optimizing physiological and psychological performance. Now, currently, the only way to obtain this feedback is through surveys. Now, I know what all of you are thinking. Nobody wants to take another boring, generic survey. And this market is already saturated by industry giants valued at $11 billion. But luckily for these candidates, we're not in the cookie-cutter survey business. We're redefining it by adding value.
Value offers a comprehensive survey platform for the Air Force soft community. The application hosts your typical array of survey actions, such as creation, deployment, and data analytics. However, to push beyond this traditional model, we need to redefine how the survey operation works. One of the key features we are adding is a plethora of new activities. All of these activities are fully customizable to training staff, so they can personalize to each individual cohort how they experience the application. We aren't only targeting these features to staff, though. While these activities are based on the traditional survey, our platform breaks from generic data entry to diversify how candidates will interact with the application as well. For example, we are embedding games that seek to challenge problem-solving skills and mental toughness through candidates that they can use to develop their minds before, during, and after their training pipeline. These also double as stealth surveys, where candidates aren't necessarily aware they're being tested, while also allowing staff to collect meaningful and insightful data. This data creates a more authentic evaluation of each individual candidate that goes beyond standard procedure, while also giving candidates the tools they need outside of physical training. Redefining the survey platform with this two-sided approach is how we excel past our competition. This is coupled with a dynamic platform, providing development to meet the needs of tomorrow. We are currently at the tail end of the design process. Once this is complete, we need $500,000 to add value to the Air Force community. This will mainly go into hiring a team of software engineers and a clinical psychologist to help us develop the application. At the end of this planned 6 to 12-month development cycle, we will deploy value to market with a subscription-based model dependent on client size.
And some of the clients we're already working with are private businesses as well as collegiate athletics programs to adapt our platform to their needs, as they believe that we can improve communication, work ethic, and productivity through all levels of their organizations. But how much more important are these factors when your life is on the line? And according to the SOF veterans we've spoken to, many of them wish they had this resource when they were going through training. Because think of the long-term implications of what we're offering. It is no secret how rampant post-traumatic stress disorder is among our nation's veterans. And we believe that our platform offers new and necessary tools to combat this condition proactively instead of reactively. Because we want to show these candidates and future airmen that no matter how stressful or demanding their objectives become, they and their feedback will always have value. Thank you.
On behalf of Special Operations Command and SOFWorks, Team Ajax will outline their solution for on-foot detection of GPS jamming threats. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Ajax.
GPS is intimately integrated into all of our lives, whether you realize it or not. It's certainly taken for granted when it works well, and when it doesn't, it can be frustrating. But it can also cause some serious problems. In 2010, Newark Airport had to shut down multiple times because a guy bought a GPS jammer for $20 online and used it to visit his girlfriend without his boss knowing. Now that seems harmless enough, but think for a moment about how many lives are affected when an airport suddenly shuts down. It costs $9 million an hour to shut down an airport like that. So think about the billions of dollars in industry that rely on accurate GPS signals. The New York Stock Exchange is directly tied to GPS. And with technology like autonomous vehicles on the rise, our reliance on GPS is only increasing from here. But now an even more sobering thought. Think of our troops. These guys rely on GPS to know where they are, where their allies are, and where the danger is. If their GPS is being jammed, then that's a problem of life or death. Hi, I'm Corey, one of the founders of Ajax, and we're creating a way to detect and locate these sources of GPS jamming threat so that we can serve those brave men and women who are serving us. Now, there are other solutions that attempt to meet this problem, but ultimately they're heavy, expensive, and even solutions that are airborne, like jets and satellites, aren't always available or even viable in a specific environment or situation. Ultimately, there aren't any other ground units that even attempt to solve this problem. But at Ajax, we're creating an app-based solution for this. See, soldiers already carry with them Android devices. Our proprietary software interacts directly with the hardware of an Android in order to listen on the GPS frequency for the presence of a jamming device. If it's found, it sends an alert to the operator that their GPS is being jammed and unreliable. Then they can take out our small deployable dish in order to locate the direction of that threat. This solution is lightweight. It's extremely easy to integrate both within government and commercial applications. And ultimately, it's providing life-saving information to these troops. Now, the total anti-jamming market is valued at $3.9 billion, and that number is only expected to increase by 50% in the next 5 years. However, we're just looking at the military obtainable market that we have. We believe that that's valued at $57 million. Now, our initial beachhead market is going to be the special ops forces because they're the ones that are currently experiencing this problem and need this solution. But at that point, we would be expanding into other branches, government agencies, as well as commercial applications like public safety and the FCC. Now, our initial go-to-market strategy is a direct one because we're working with special operators to iterate on and perfect this technology. Then we can license it for about $2,100 with no extra hardware fee. In our first year to market, we plan to deploy 50 to 100 of these systems. And by year 5 to market, we hope to serve 25% of all special ops forces for a gross revenue of almost $37 million, which puts us well on our way to hitting that $57 million mark. Now, in the 16 weeks that we've been working on this problem, we've conducted over 60 outreach interviews with industry and tech experts, government officials, as well as current and veteran combat operators. We've been working directly with SoftWorks, Special Ops Technology Incubator, and we've created 9 minimal viable product iterations on both the hardware as well as the software side. The latest hardware MVP is a static dish instead of a foldable one because we want to eliminate variables and get accurate testing results. And our latest software MVP is a fully functioning app that listens and gathers data on the GPS band frequency, outputs that data for analysis, and also sends an alert when the GPS is not working correctly. This veteran-owned and operated team is comprised of engineers from all different fields and backgrounds. So we understand this problem, we know this market, but more importantly, we know how to provide value with our solution. Looking forward, fall of this year, we want to have a final MVP with testing behind it. Then a year from now, we want to have a final prototype that can secure our first contract, and then have our first 100 units deployed for field testing by fall of 2020. We initially believe that our funding value is set at $1.8 million, and that will be divided up in 3 stages. The first stage will be at $700,000, and that will be used towards R&D, continued product development, as well as securing our IP protection plan. The second one will go towards further testing as well as licensing through the FCC. And then the third one will go towards product and market expansion. But we believe that that first $700,000 will be able to bring our technology readiness level from a 4, where we're at right now, up to a 7, where we need to be to start actually integrating this with SOCOM and getting this solution to our troops. Because, see, threats to GPS could affect all of our everyday lives. But for a soldier, threats to GPS could cost them theirs. So if we could help bring just one soldier home, if we could help bring just one parent home, then for us at Ajax, that is a mission success. So from all of us, thank you.
On behalf of the Navy's 3rd Fleet, Team Red 5 will now present their solution to fuse and display combat readiness data for rapid assessment by naval leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Red 5.
The Strait of Hormuz. The average American probably couldn't tell you what it is or why it's important. 20% of the world's oil production comes through this water channel, and Iran is currently threatening to blockade it in response to U.S. economic sanctions. A blockade would cripple the world's oil market, and the U.S. would be forced to respond. When we started this project, this was just a war game, but as of 2 days ago, the United States decided to deploy USS Abraham Lincoln to the region for a show of force. How did we know to send this ship? How did we know that this had the right technology, capability, and equipment in order to complete their mission? I can guarantee you the Navy had one guy running around a bunch of databases with an Excel spreadsheet collecting this information. This could take hours or days. The reality is that fleet management is not an easy problem to solve. Each and every ship in the United States Navy has to consider the 5 readiness pillars before they can call themselves mission capable. Those pillars are personnel, equipment, supplies, training, and ordnance. Those are called the PESTO pillars for anybody who's not immediately familiar. Now, when you look at the size of the problem, it becomes very apparent. A single aircraft carrier has 6,000 sailors on it. When you take in an entire squadron, that is over 9,000 sailors, and each of those has to account for each of those PESTO pillars. Right now, there is not a very good solution for the fleet management problem, even in the commercial world. This is Frontier Airlines' method of tracking their fleet. It's difficult to manage and even more difficult to track, meaning that it couldn't be able to scale to the Navy's problems. Others that try to tackle this problem are often too specialized, or they don't have the resources they need to expand out to reach the Navy. When you're tackling the fleet management problem, you have to consider 3 things in your solution. The first thing is it has to easily integrate with already existing data. Most organizations already have plenty of information on the problem they are trying to solve, meaning we need to use that data instead of starting from scratch. Second, the solution has to be customizable. The United States Navy is not FedEx. Those 2 fleets are trying to solve completely different problems, meaning they have unique problems, and unique problems require unique solutions. Finally, your solution has to be scalable. The Navy has 7 fleets, meaning that they have 250 ships to manage. Their solution has to scale from the squadron level all the way up to the fleet level in order to be successful. And that's where our solution comes in. Using a unique software tool, our team can take those disparate databases and condense them into a single dashboard. What this means is that we don't have an O3 running around collecting data anymore. This also means that they don't have to change their input methods. We can use what they already have. When it comes to designing for the Navy, they definitely have a unique solution, and they need 3 things. First, they need to be able to see which ships are ready to go right away. What is mission capable at this moment? Second, they need to know what are the squadron critical issues, or what are the pressing issues. What do I need to fix to get this ship ready to deploy immediately? And finally, they need to know how up-to-date their information is. If an admiral has to make a decision that could cost lives, that means that he needs the most up-to-date information that he possibly can, instead of having something that's a month old. And in 14 short weeks, our team has delivered that product. This is the dashboard that we have designed for the Navy. It outlines all of those points. At a glance, you can see where a ship is at in terms of readiness and what they need to do in order to get ready. We have tied squadron critical issues specifically to a ship, so we can see what needs to be fixed immediately and what can get a ship operational. We've even gone so far as to take previous data points and, using AI technology, predict what a ship's readiness will be in the future. Navy leaders will now have the tools they need to prepare for the upcoming readiness challenges. They can predict what they will need, prepare for it, and be the most effective and efficient Navy in the world. We believe that with a $500,000 initial investment, we can take it even farther. We can expand from the squadron level all the way to the fleet level. That $500,000 will cover the 12-month payroll for developers. It'll cover research so that we can expand to the higher levels, and it'll cover equipment so we can get started on implementing this wherever we need it to. And we believe that with that $500,000, we can generate $3 million in 2 years. That comes from initial startup fees, additional development costs, so making it unique and custom to that specific client, and a monthly subscription so that we can better serve our servicemen. But we don't stop there. We believe that the rest of the armed forces could use this product. The Air Force could use this as well. The Marines, the Army, anything that manages a fleet can use this system. And we believe that we can get there and generate $10 million in revenue just for the Department of Defense. We also believe that we can expand to the commercial world. We're talking Southwest, Frontier, United. Anything in the commercial world that needs a fleet management system, we have their backs. We are Team RedFi, a group of 7 college students dedicated to solving the fleet management problem. Thank you for your time.
We now move to our 4 policy pitches, where teams outline novel changes to policies and business practices to address emerging national security challenges. We begin with Team Zapata, which on behalf of the Office of the Secretary of Defense for Space Policy, presents policy adaptations to better understand and defend American interests in space during this era of rapid commercial expansion. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Zapata.
Good evening. We're Zapata, and today we're here to talk to you about the Department of Defense's space policy. In the previous century, the US dominated space in a way never seen before or since. People all over the world came to us for our expertise with technologies, our launch capacity, and our willingness to trade. But the world is changing. Now commercial space is taking off globally. More countries than ever before have access to launch capacity, and entrepreneurs are building constellations with unprecedented speed and scale. Space, in short, is becoming democratized, globalized, and privatized. And with these changes come new challenges for the United States. Existing space-based systems are becoming increasingly vulnerable to attacks by hostile actors or accidental collisions in congested orbits. The space technology gap between the United States and the rest of the world is closing rapidly. As just one fact, the United States military share of satellites in orbit has nearly halved in the last 13 years. And the decentralization of space is creating myriad problems of management and order in the orbital commons. With the most number of space assets in orbit, we have the most to lose if this is not guided by a system of governance that works for us. How the DoD addresses these problems will determine whether we lead the world into this new space age or follow our competitors around the world. Any policy actions that seek to address these challenges must therefore address three key questions. First, how can the DoD leverage the growth in commercial space activity as it seeks more and better technology to meet emerging defense needs? Second, what can the DoD do to support the US commercial space sector and ensure that we have a robust and vibrant space industrial base? And third, how can we do this fast? Over the last 16 weeks, we've conducted over 60 interviews with members in the government, in the commercial space sector, in the military, across the board. None of the problems that we are describing are new. What is new is the urgency. Whereas in the 1990s, we could afford to write technical white papers about the gaps in the acquisitions process, now we face a stark choice. We either update our space policy framework to lead the world into the 21st century, or we continue with the timid, comfortable framework that we had in the 20th century and hope that that gets us through. So let's talk about what such a policy might look like. That policy framework has to deliver three goals. It has to provide maximal value for minimal cost to the DoD, and it has to do that on time. As we said earlier, it has to ensure that the US commercial space industrial base is robust, diversified, and healthy. And finally, it has to be integrated into the global economy to ensure that we are laying the foundations for a global space governance framework that benefits the US economically, geostrategically, politically. Today, we want to talk to you about two specific policy proposals that we've developed for the DoD, part of a broader portfolio. These two, we believe, are the boldest and have the most potential for transformative impact within the next 10 years. First, access to launch and satellite capacity is critical for defense readiness. As you've heard today, our soldiers depend on space capacity to do their jobs. We propose a Civil Reserve space fleet, modeled on the Civil Reserve Air Fleet, a program that has already delivered tangible benefits to the US military. Rather than relying on maintaining their own capacity for contingent airlift across the world at irregular times, the DoD takes advantage of commercial capacity. When they need to move something from point A to point B and they don't have one of their own jets there, they put out a contract to have the commercial sector move it. And in times of crisis, they have these same folks step up and deliver their capacity to the DoD. We propose a similar capacity program for space. Such programs can lower the operational costs of maintaining capacity to move items from point A to point B, in this case from the ground to the Earth, to space, or to deliver bandwidth in critical locations, and do so while maximizing operational agility. So here's what we recommend OSD do, the Office of the Secretary of Defense, to get this ball rolling. Start with a pilot program for orbital launch capacity for small sat launches going to low Earth orbit. There are a number of new providers cropping up every day. Enroll these folks, have them develop the program, use existing capacity in the Space and Missile Systems Center, and use existing members of US Transcom who know how to work this program for the CRAF. But it's not enough to feed US commercial space on US demand. As Americans, we have bigger appetites than that. Currently, excessive restrictions on exports and imports of space technologies are crippling innovative American companies who would like to compete internationally, but are unable to do so. Opening up to trade can fix this and allow the DoD to harness the full range of space technologies and business models available. Additionally, trading with our competitors increases their dependence on our technology stack, reducing their payoff from contemplating attacking our infrastructure. We've seen the opposite story before. In the late 90s, worried about the Chinese space industry, Congress passed a sweeping set of measures designed to prevent trade with China. And for a few years it worked. The Chinese space industry did not develop. But others across the world stepped into the void that we left. Chinese launch activity picked up, and our satellite industry was left paying the price. Here's what we recommend OSD do. Start by working with the SDA, newly established Space Development Agency, and SMC, get them in the room with the Department of Commerce, and figure out how we can move more items from the US munitions list to the Commerce Control List to safely expand the scope of what we can trade. To be most effective, this will need to be paired with international IP reform, and that's a job for more than just OSD. But why listen to us? You should listen to us because we have a unique combination of experience spanning from economics, policy, strategic play, to aerospace and mechanical engineering and computer science. In the last 3 months, we've interviewed a number of professionals in the sector, accumulating to over 1,000 years of experience in space, military and commercial. We bring a fresh but educated perspective to this problem. To wrap it up, changing times require changing strategies. The status quo that we used to have for space is no longer fit to purpose. If we want to ensure that America continues to lead into the 21st century, we have to adapt. We have to view space as a service. We have to open to trade. There is no other option. The steps we've articulated may be uncomfortable, but we are the USA. Timidity is not who we are. We must stride boldly forward into the future. I know that many of you must have questions. How would this work? Stick around after the presentations in this room. We'd be happy to go deep on the details. Where's Zapata? Thank you.
Next, on behalf of the Office of the Secretary of Defense and their Advanced Distributed Learning Initiative, Team Bitewise provides a strategy to better understand and represent the skills of our service members across the military branches. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Bitewise.
Picture this. It's March of 2011, and the Fukushima nuclear power plant just went into meltdown due to the earthquake and tsunami that devastated Japan. The US military decides to send a group of engineers in order to assist in the efforts to reduce nuclear waste entering the environment and to hopefully keep the remaining reactors from also going into meltdown. But what if we weren't sending the right people? What if there was someone that wasn't chosen to go on this mission despite their experience with nuclear reactors identical to Fukushima? Well, that's exactly what happened. A Naval Reserve officer whose day job was designing nuclear reactors was denied the ability to go on this mission. Only after writing to Congress begging for them to intervene did they finally put two and two together and realize this is the kind of person we need going on this mission. And the reason that this happened is simple. We have an industrial age model that isn't fitting in with the information age. Large gaps of information about our warfighters are missing, which means we don't have a clear picture of who knows what or to what proficiency level. We've been operating in a cookie-cutter type model. Positions in the military are able to be filled by anyone. They're interchangeable. And this worked in the past, but it doesn't work today. People are not the same, despite what they look on paper. They have individual talents, skills, and knowledge sets, and we need to leverage these in order to create the best teams to accomplish these difficult missions. The good news is there's a solution on the horizon. The Advanced Distributed Learning Initiative, or ADL for short, is currently working on a technologically advanced system that will bring training and resource management into the 21st century, and they're doing that through two main avenues. The first being competency-based ecosystems, essentially creating a common currency for skills. It won't matter which branch of the military you learned something, or whether you learned it in the military at all. By utilizing a universally defined and weighted skill analysis, we will be able to know exactly what our warfighters do or don't know. The second avenue is universal learner records. By creating a record that follows our warfighters from day one in boot camp to the day that they leave the military, we will be able to minimize gaps in information, leading to commanding officers having the best picture of what their warfighters know. This will also make it easier for soldiers to leave the military when and if they decide to leave and transition back into civilian world. Now, it's one thing to have a prototype, but how does it actually get implemented? That's where Team Bitewise comes in. Through a number of stakeholder interviews over the past 16 weeks, we've been able to gather the perceptions from industry experts, service members, policymakers, and chief learning officers. By getting down into the nitty-gritty of how they feel, we have been able to advise ADL on what we believe are the main areas that they need to focus on. And we've decided on 3 areas that we feel need addressed most: a champion for policy, a dynamic solution, and commercial opportunities. Whatever solution ADL decides to present, we need it to come in a top-down manner, which means we need someone to follow this from start to finish, bringing people on board along the way. We need someone to go to Congress and make them believe that this is the only option the US military has if they want to stay number one. We also need a dynamic solution. The US branches of the military have a deeply integrated culture that can at times be divisive, which means we need a solution that works well with their individual needs and individual perceptions. We believe that a dynamic solution could solve a quarter of the problems that stakeholders see coming up as the implementation process begins. We also believe that ADL should leverage commercial opportunities. Throughout the semester, we've identified 22 projects that are working towards a very similar end goal, of which 19 are in the commercial realm. We believe that if ADL uses these companies as allies instead of competitors, they'll be able to advance their integration and have a better success for their product. Now, we won't be able to always predict the next crisis that faces the US or its allies, but by integrating ADL's technical solution with Team Bitewise's political policy recommendations, we can make sure that the next time we send men and women abroad to face these crises, we're sending the right ones. We are Team Bitewise, and we thank you for your time.
Next, on behalf of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Team Loki will outline a strategy for protecting transoceanic logistics under high-end combat conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Loki.
In military affairs, amateurs talk about tactics, but professionals study logistics. Logistics are critical because history tells us that if we can't supply, we can't fight. If we can't fight, we can't deter. And if we can't deter, the result is war. Right now, we are losing our ability to supply our troops in the Pacific. So our future power to deter war with countries like China is deteriorating. And if we went to war with China, many of us in this room would be enlisted and headed off to battle in the Pacific. There, we would be greeted with a deadly combination of long-range missiles and advanced cyber weaponry, because China gets to fight 90 miles off their coast, and we would be 6,000 miles from ours. Tragically, a conflict like this could result in more casualties than World War II, meaning many of us would not come home. So let's talk logistics.
The Joint Staff Innovation Group wants to strengthen our future ability to supply troops and is looking for ways to insert uncertainty and delays into enemy strikes and movements through the use of logistics. To help do this, they've asked our team to ideate and report on achievable technology applications that can radically increase the effectiveness of our logistics operations by 2030. To better understand this future environment, our team interviewed dozens of service members from every branch of the military and had the opportunity to visit the Pentagon to meet with the Logistics Directorate of the Joint Staff and the Joint Staff Innovation Group. We researched numerous emerging technologies, including modern ERP systems, cybersecurity, autonomous robotics, underwater propulsion, and many more. And based on technological maturity, operational effectiveness, and cost, our team came up with several solutions that the military can use to deceive competitors and successfully supply troops at the same time. And we call this collection of concepts the deceptive logistics ecosystem. This ecosystem consists of layered capabilities that collectively use resupply operations to deceive competitors about the locations of our supplies, and as a result, our intentions in war. When an adversary doesn't know how to immediately respond to our actions, they face a dilemma that not only delays their response, but potentially forces them to waste precious, tangible resources. In turn, this allows us to supply our troops, to prepare to fight, and ultimately, if we're credible, to deter battle in the first place. Now, of the many capabilities outlined in our report, 2 lay the foundation for this deceptive logistics ecosystem: counterfeit dilemma drones and autonomous supply capsules. Counterfeit dilemma drones consist of swarms of small, dispensable, surface-borne drones that use AI and other technology to mimic the movements, signals, emissions, and other characteristics of real US supply vessels. These drones can deceive our competitors into thinking that our supplies are simply in locations that they are not, therefore clouding the real location and movements of our supplies and our operational objectives as a result. Our second capability is a distributed network of autonomous supply capsules. They can be filled with raw additive manufacturing materials and placed in strategic locations around the sea floor, so that if a ship needs to manufacture a critical repair part or other supplies on board using 3D printing or other technology, a capsule can autonomously navigate to the ship in need. These capsules help resupply our ships without the need to return to shore, which not only masks the fairly well-known capabilities of our fleet, but also reduces a reliance on ship-to-ship resupply practices that could be easy targets for enemy strikes.
We chose counterfeit dilemma drones and supply capsules because of their advantages over other technologies. Not only were we able to confirm with the Joint Staff Innovation Group that the AI, navigation, and robotics technologies needed for our ecosystem are all feasible for deployment by 2030, but these capabilities are adaptable as well. Instead of an expensive single-use solution, we introduce a complex ecosystem that is low cost, unmanned, and capable of evolution. For example, this Navy resupply ship costs around $200 million. If China used $1 million missile to destroy it, not only does that cost us 200 times more, but 300 sailors could lose their lives. Compare that to the loss of a counterfeit drone or supply capsule, and now China has wasted an expensive missile on our cheap drone, and we didn't lose a single life. We believe that our report describing the deceptive logistics ecosystem is of great value to the Joint Staff Innovation Group because our technology capabilities can deceive adversaries and increase successful supply operations. Our ability to supply is what helps deter war, so that in 2030, instead of spending our lives fighting in the Pacific, we will be spending our lives with our loved ones. Thank you.
And finally, on behalf of Army Special Forces, Intrepid Human Capital Systems will present a strategy to better retain our mid-career Green Beret officers. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Intrepid.
The Special Forces Regiment is a human-centric organization. Its successes are based on the quality of its people. In October of 2001, when 2 Special Forces Operational Detachment Alphas descended into Afghanistan, it was the soldiers on those teams and the captains that lead them that were responsible for dealing a decisive blow to the Taliban well ahead of the main invasion force. The Special Forces Regiment understands that humans are more important than hardware, but in examining this organization, looking for issues that are leading to talent retention issues, we identified that many of the systems which they use to manage their personnel are not necessarily supporting this value effectively. Over the last 16 weeks, we've engaged with over 200 Special Forces captains from across the organization. In doing so, we've identified that all of these individuals are extremely dedicated to service. They're all committed to making change in the military or in the world, and all of them have skills which the regiment should seek to retain for future success. However, we've also identified that over a third of these captains are not satisfied in their post-operational job role. Over half of these individuals have already identified at around 8 to 10 years of service that they will voluntarily separate from the military prior to serving in more senior leadership roles. And 88% of these people that we interviewed believe that the regiment is not retaining its highest quality officers. Perhaps most importantly, we've identified that none of these individuals are receiving regular counseling or career management services, have sufficient career choice in most cases, have opportunities to provide feedback about their satisfaction at work, and we believe that the organization is not effectively tracking employee satisfaction data. I'm Dan, one of the founders of Intrepid Human Capital Solutions and a former Navy SEAL officer. Our process has been to empathize with stakeholders across the organization to understand what motivates them, what their values are, and what their life circumstances are that are potentially leading to retention issues. Using that information, we've created solutions to solve those problems. We've tested those solutions directly with stakeholders to ensure that they're effective in retention. And finally, we've iterated this process to optimize our solutions. As a result of this process, we've produced a comprehensive report which identifies key factors which are impacting talent retention in the Special Forces Regiment, as well as solutions which we believe effectively address these factors. Tonight, we'd like to share 2 of those solutions. This is Captain John. He works at 10th Special Forces Group in Fort Carson, Colorado. And John also has a wife who has a promising career as a lawyer in Colorado Springs. Now, unfortunately, John has received orders to relocate to Fort Polk, Louisiana, and he fears that his wife will have to sacrifice her career in order to support his. As a result of this, John will simply decide to leave the Army. Now, we feel that by better understanding his motivations, his values, and the life circumstances that would lead to this decision, the Army could effectively implement a solution to retain this individual. And our solution would be to allow this individual to remain in Fort Carson. He could complete his administrative responsibilities at 10th Special Forces Group and travel to Louisiana when necessary to complete training exercises that are part of his job. We believe that this solution could most effectively retain John. Now, another individual is Captain Mike. Captain Mike is a highly entrepreneurial individual. He sees significant room for change within the Special Forces Regiment, and he really wants to make an impact. But John perceives no method or avenues to do so, both now or in the future. So again, he will leave the Army, he'll pursue an MBA, and he'll look for opportunities elsewhere that better leverage his talents to solve problems. Again, we believe that there's a solution which could retain Mike. We would like to set up a program that gives him innovation time in white space to work on problems that he's identified in the community and create solutions which he can then communicate leaders to implement. Now, these examples are great, but they're only temporary. Ultimately, in order for this strategy to be most effective, the Army must implement a continuous and iterative human capital management strategy. The first part of this strategy would be to implement systems which improve communication to understand problems that are happening now. This would look at the motivations and values of the people in their organization. It would then enact policies and procedures to address deficiencies that they've identified. And finally, create metrics to track and quantify those issues and optimize their solutions. We believe that the first step in implementation is to initiate a pilot program at 10th Special Forces Group. The purpose of this pilot program would be to test some of our solutions to see which ones most effectively retain talent within the organization. Secondly, we believe that the regiment should purchase and implement an off-the-shelf employee engagement platform which continuously tracks and understands our employees' motivations and values and provides ways to act on them. And finally, we believe that the most effective implementation strategy would continue to partner with our team to implement these solutions. The Special Forces Regiment knows intimately that humans are more important than hardware. And by implementing the solutions that we have outlined in our report, we believe that they continue to live up to this motto. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I highlighted in my opening remarks, none of this activity that you saw tonight is possible without our partnership with the National Security Innovation Network. Forgive me, they just changed their name from MD5, which you might have been familiar with. I am pleased tonight and sincerely grateful to welcome Rachel Cheatham, the Director for the Rocky Mountain region of INSIN, the National Security Innovation Network.
I feel a little bit awkward standing in front of this entire room between you and knowing who the winners were, because to be honest, that was incredible. Far exceeded my expectations. These students have worked on some incredible problems, and I couldn't be more proud of the work that they've done. Before I get into telling you a little bit about the National Security Innovation Network, I want to first thank CU Boulder. CU has been a phenomenal partner in getting this program going and keeping the momentum. They are truly phenomenal at what they do, and having the support of these partners at Tier 1 research universities and universities across the country is essential in making Ensign work the way that we really want it to work. So thank you to Lloyd, thank you to Andy, thank you to Lauren, thank you to the support team, Rebecca, awesome, Victoria, Daria. I would be remiss if I didn't call out Rex Laceby. Thank you, Rex, for kind of tying everything together for us. But really, thank you to the students who have spent a long semester really looking at these problems and putting your best foot forward. We thank you on behalf of MD5, but truly you are serving those who are serving your country. And so I think that in and of itself deserves a round of applause. So thank you to CU. So with that being said, as Lloyd so eloquently mentioned, Ensign, formerly known as MD5, rebranded as of yesterday. So if I say something like MD-Sin in the next couple of minutes, you'll know why, because I'm still trying to get used to the idea of this new name. New name or not, the message, the mission, and at our core, the organization has not changed. We are a DoD organization, and we are dedicated to building and supporting the defense innovation ecosystem throughout the entire nation. A large part of that is through programs like the one that you saw today, where we bring military and DoD problems out of the military world, and we bring together what we like to call non-traditional problem solvers around these problems, because we truly believe that the value within this community of non-traditional problem solvers is that the DoD can extract so much from new perspectives and fresh thinking. So with that, Ensign has three very core missions. One, we are creating new pathways for national security service. And what that means is we're finding new ways to leverage the outside community around DoD problems. Many of you probably have heard of companies like Google who have flex time for their employees that allow them to work on something that's near and dear to their heart for a couple hours a week. We want to take advantage of programs like that where people can dedicate their skill set and their expertise to DoD problems. We as a nation are only going to be as good as what we can leverage from our own backyard. And that includes the startup community, the academic community, and the research community, and really tapping into the expertise that they have and the value that they put forward. Second focus of the organization is helping to solve DoD problems through collaboration with the venture community and the academic community. So Hacking for Defense is just one program that we have. We also have hackathons where we bring people in for a weekend to work on a really specific DoD problem. The last focus that we have is accelerated adoption of these novel solutions, because what we're not about is innovation theater. We want to take these solutions and get them back into the hands of the warfighter. That is of utmost importance to us. You may have noticed that the teams that you saw today were presenting to you solutions that had dual use applicability, which is hugely important when we're talking about actually getting solutions into the warfighter hands. We want to see these solutions succeed in both the military market and the commercial market. So with that in mind, if you're interested in being part of that defense innovation ecosystem, which showing up tonight is a big part of that, so thank you. Come see us and come talk to us a little bit more about some of the things that we're doing. Rex and I are located here in Denver, and we are dedicated to fully exploiting the resources that we have within this community to help further along the cause and the mission of supporting the warfighter. So with that, I think we're ready for for some winners? We are. Awesome. Okay, thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, to start, we will begin with the People's Choice Award that you chose. We had a very robust response, and I hope you will stand when your team is called and receive some applause. Ladies and gentlemen, the D4D 2019 People's Choice Award is Team Chariot. Congratulations. Now moving to policy, the Judge's Choice Award for D4D 2019 Policy Problem. It's Team Loki. And finally, the Judge's Choice for D4D 2019 Product Award goes to Team Ajax. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our formal program. Thank you sincerely for sharing your evening with us. May I ask for one last round of applause for all of these student teams that labored with us.